The grand halls of Buckingham Palace had witnessed countless secrets, but none as shocking as this. When Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis stumbled upon a cryptic letter hidden in the royal library, they never imagined it would unravel a decades-old scandal that could bring the monarchy to its knees. A forgotten prince, a queen's darkest secret, a truth too dangerous to stay buried. As the young royals dug deeper, whispers turned into gasps, and the walls of the palace threatened to crumble under the weight of deception. But when the lost heir finally stepped forward, demanding justice, one question remained. Would the monarchy survive the truth, or would it be shattered forever? The UK was in shock, and this was just the beginning. The grand halls of Buckingham Palace echoed with the soft tapping of little feet. Princess Charlotte, now 9 years old, had always been the more inquisitive of the royal children. Her younger brother, Prince Louis, though playful, had an uncanny sense of when something wasn't quite right. And today, something felt very wrong. The siblings had noticed a shift in the palace's atmosphere. Their father, Prince William, had been tense for weeks, often retreating into deep thought. Their mother, Princess Catherine, remained composed but seemed unusually distant. And Queen Camilla? Well, there was something about her gaze that made Charlotte uneasy. One evening, as the golden rays of the sunset bathed the palace gardens in a warm glow, Charlotte and Louis sat beneath an ancient oak tree. It was their secret spot, a place where they could talk without fear of being overheard. "Have you noticed how Papa doesn't laugh as much anymore?" Charlotte whispered, picking at the grass. Louis nodded, his bright blue eyes reflecting concern. "And Mama keeps looking at Queen Camilla differently, like she's scared." Charlotte bit her lip. "I think something happened. Something bad." Just then, a rustling in the bushes startled them. A palace aide, an older woman named Margaret, emerged hesitantly. She had been with the royal family for years and had a soft spot for the young royals. Her face was pale, and her hands trembled as she handed Charlotte a folded piece of parchment. "You mustn't let anyone see this," Margaret whispered urgently. "Read it together, but tell no one." Charlotte's hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. It belonged to their grandfather, King Charles III. "My dearest grandchildren, if you are reading this, it means you have sensed the truth. I can no longer hold this secret, for it weighs heavily upon me. Queen Camilla has done something unforgivable, and it involves you both." Charlotte's heart pounded in her chest. She glanced at Louis, who swallowed hard. "What does he mean?" Louis asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Margaret glanced over her shoulder before whispering, She did something long ago, and now it's coming back to haunt her." Charlotte tightened her grip on the letter. "We need to find out the truth." Louis hesitated. "But what if it's dangerous?" Charlotte set her jaw. "Then we'll be careful. But we have to know what she did." Little did they know, their quest for the truth would shake the very foundation of the monarchy. The next day, Charlotte and Louis began their quiet investigation. They knew that if they asked their parents directly, they would be told to stay out of it. But they had an advantage. People often underestimated children. Their first stop was the Royal Library. Hidden among dusty tomes and historical records, they found something unexpected. An old photograph of Queen Camilla from decades ago holding a small baby. The caption beneath read, "Lady Camilla with an unidentified infant, 1975. Charlotte's heart skipped a beat. "Who is that baby?" Louis peered closer. "It's not Papa. He wasn't born yet." They had to find someone who knew more. That person was Sir Alfred, a retired royal advisor who had served the monarchy for over 50 years. Under the guise of an innocent visit, the children found him in his cottage on the palace grounds. "Ah, young royals," Sir Alfred greeted, his voice warm but weary. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" Charlotte wasted no time. She pulled out the photograph. "Who is this baby?" Sir Alfred's expression changed instantly. His face paled, and he sank into his chair. Where? Where did you find this? In the library, Louis said cautiously. We think Queen Camilla is hiding something. A long silence followed, before Sir Alfred finally spoke. That baby was a secret child, one that should have never existed. Charlotte's breath caught in her throat. Queen Camilla had another child? Sir Alfred nodded gravely. Yes, but when the affair became known, the baby was taken away. Camilla, she made sure no one would ever know. Louis frowned. But why does this involve us? Sir Alfred hesitated before leaning in. Because that child was your uncle. The revelation sent shivers down Charlotte's spine. She knew their family history, but no one had ever spoken about an unknown uncle. What happened to him? She asked. Sir Alfred's eyes darkened. Camilla ensured he disappeared. Some say he was sent away. Others believe something worse. Charlotte clenched her fists. We need to tell Papa. But before they could leave, the door creaked open. Queen Camilla stood there, her eyes filled with icy rage. You've been snooping where you shouldn't, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Charlotte and Louis froze. They had just uncovered a secret that could shake the entire monarchy. And now they were in the lion's den. Queen Camilla shut the door behind her, her piercing gaze fixed on the two young royals. You children have no idea what you're meddling with, she said coldly. Charlotte stood her ground. Then tell us the truth. What happened to the baby? Camilla sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. It wasn't supposed to come to this. Louis swallowed. So it's true? You had another child? Camilla's eyes softened for a moment before hardening again. Yes, and I had to make a choice. A choice no mother should have to make. Charlotte's voice shook with emotion. Did you hurt him? Camilla's jaw tightened. But I sent him away to protect myself. If the public knew, I would never have been accepted as queen. Louis frowned. Where is he now? A shadow passed over Camilla's face. I don't know. He was taken by people who made sure he'd never be found. A tense silence filled the room. Then the door burst open. Prince William strode in, his face thunderous. Mother told me what you two were up to, he said, glaring at Charlotte and Louis before turning to Camilla. And now I know why you've always been so secretive. Camilla lifted her chin. William, this is not your concern. But William shook his head. You lied to all of us. My father deserves to know. The confrontation escalated, voices rising. But then the impossible happened. A royal guard entered the room, looking flustered. Your Majesty, he said to Camilla, there's a man outside, claiming to be your son. The room fell deathly silent. Charlotte and Louis exchanged glances. The truth was finally out, and the world was about to know what Queen Camilla had done. Epilogue. The shockwave news broke within hours. The headlines screamed scandal. Queen Camilla's secret son. The royal cover-up exposed. The UK was in shock. The monarchy was in turmoil. And Charlotte and Louis had unraveled a mystery that changed everything. But the biggest question remained. Who was this mysterious man? And what would he do next? The palace was in chaos. The breaking news had reached every corner of the world. Queen Camilla's secret son returns, a royal cover-up exposed. Cameras flashed outside Buckingham Palace. Reporters swarmed the gates, and the public demanded answers. Inside, the tension was suffocating. King Charles sat in his private study, his face ashen. Across from him, Queen Camilla stood, arms crossed, her usual poise unraveling. The man who claimed to be her son, James Ashford, stood near the window, his expression unreadable. Charlotte and Louis peered from behind their father, their small hands clenched. They had uncovered the truth, but the weight of it was almost too much to bear. King Charles finally broke the silence. Is it true, Camilla? Camilla hesitated, her eyes darting between her husband and James. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "Yes." A sharp intake of breath echoed through the room. William's face was a storm of emotions: anger, betrayal, shock. "So, you've been lying to us our whole lives? To the entire country?" Camilla turned to James, her voice shaky. How did you find out?" James exhaled slowly. "I always knew I was different. I grew up in a small town in Scotland, raised by a couple who were kind but always distant. They never told me where I came from. But last year, my adoptive mother passed away. And in her belongings, I found this." He pulled out an old faded birth certificate. The name on it sent chills through the room. James Windsor, born 1975. Mother, Camilla Shand. Father, unknown. Charlotte gasped. "He really is your son." Camilla sank into a chair, rubbing her temples. "I had no choice," she whispered. "I wasn't married to Charles yet. The monarchy would have never accepted me with a child out of wedlock. I was forced to give you up." James's voice was ice cold. "You gave me up to save your own future." Louis, still too young to grasp the full weight of the situation, tugged at Charlotte's sleeve. "Does this mean we have an uncle?" William turned to Camilla. "What else have you hidden?" Camilla looked away, but the answer was already clear. This was just the beginning. The scandal erupted like wildfire. Some members of the public sympathized with James, calling him the forgotten prince. Others demanded Camilla be removed as queen consort. And in the midst of it all, a far bigger question loomed. Did James have a claim to the throne? Inside the palace, war had begun. King Charles was in an impossible position. His reputation was already fragile, and now his wife's past had become an international spectacle. The Royal Council had called an emergency meeting to decide James's fate. James, standing tall despite the chaos, made his position clear. "I don't want the throne," he said. "I want justice. I want the truth to be known." But others weren't so sure. Some legal experts argued that, despite being born out of wedlock, James was still the eldest child of Queen Camilla. Technically, he could have a rightful claim over William. The tension was unbearable. "Is that what this is about?" William snapped, stepping toward James. "You're here to take my birthright?" James met his gaze, unwavering. "No, Prince William. I'm here to take back my life." But the media had already spun their own narrative. Royal power struggle? Queen's secret son versus Prince William. And with growing public pressure, some within the monarchy began whispering the unthinkable. Could James be recognized as part of the royal family? Camilla, for the first time in her life, had lost control. The final decision rested with King Charles. The world held its breath as the royal family convened. Inside the grand chamber, Charles sat on his gilded chair, his expression unreadable. Camilla sat beside him, her hands trembling. James stood at the center of the room, facing his long-lost family. Charles exhaled deeply before speaking. "I cannot undo the past," he said, "but I can acknowledge the truth." He turned to James. "You are my stepson, and for that I extend my personal apology. But as king, I must follow the law." A heavy silence followed. Charles looked toward the Royal Council. James Ashford, formerly James Windsor, will be recognized as a private member of the royal family with the status of a noble but not a prince. Gasps filled the room. James clenched his fists. "So you acknowledge me, but you still cast me aside?" Charles met his gaze. "You were never raised in the royal family. William is next in line, and that will not change." James looked away. "I never wanted the throne," he muttered, "but I did want the truth." Charlotte and Louis, watching from the side, exchanged glances. They had uncovered a hidden part of their family, but at what cost? The public would continue to debate James's place in history. Some saw him as a wronged prince, others as an opportunist. But one thing was clear: Queen Camilla would never escape this scandal. As James turned to leave, he stopped before Charlotte and Louis. With a small, sad smile, he said, "Thank you. You brought me home, even if I'll never truly belong." And with that, the lost prince walked away, leaving Buckingham Palace and his past behind. The monarchy had survived, but the scars of this secret would never fade. Epilogue. A kingdom forever changed. The UK remained divided over James Ashford's fate. Though not a prince, his story became legend. The Queen's hidden son. Queen Camilla, once the power behind the throne, found herself forever tainted. Though she remained by Charles' side, the whispers never ceased. For Charlotte and Louis, this was their first lesson in the brutal world of royalty. And for William, it was a stark reminder: secrets never stay buried forever. But one thing was certain: the monarchy would never be the same again.